Warning. Warning.
Welcome to the 2-minute warning. Where sports fans sound off.
I'm trying to blow your mind. I'm talking literally blow your mind. I'm trying to blow your mind. I'm talking literally blow your mind.
Here we go, fight fans. We're back with another installment of the 2-minute warning, Spinning Back Fist MMA podcast. Bringing the knowledge, we got co-host with me, Omar. What's up, Omar?
How are you guys doing tonight?
Good, with a little delay there. He's on somewhat central time. I guess he's kind of caught in the middle of time zones. No worries, we'll get that cleaned up. Tommy D, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, guys?
Or I should call it Omar the joint manipulator and Tommy Jits. Yeah, I had a little fun with the podcast promotion. I just figured I'd throw out some, just having some fun with some nicknames. They obviously aren't our nicknames. I just figured it would add a little humor to the promotion, I guess, that I'm putting on social media for our listeners to download and listen. But yeah, we're back, second show. I'm geared up for it. I'm really happy with the first product that we had, the pilot show. I'm really looking forward to get going. I'm assuming you guys echo my sentiments that we were, happy with what we put out on the first show, and obviously as we go along here, we're going to keep building on it. Omar, how did you feel about the show?
I loved it. It was a great nice chat that we had. Learned a lot. I think I had great fun doing it, and I hope the listeners had as much fun listening as I think we did putting it on.
Right, I agree. And me personally, like I don't really have much experience training like you guys do. I mean, you're actively training right now, Omar. Tommy, I know you've been dealing with some injuries in your personal life or whatever, so that kind of like hampered you. Plus, work has you out of state here and there. So I know you're excited about getting going because we talked about it for a while. But I'm assuming you also echo those sentiments about the show, right? You're probably happy with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people that listen to the show. Some good critiques, and we're just going to keep running with it.
Right. And there's no I have no issue with a little constructive criticism either. So far what I've been seeing is definitely positive feedback. You're more of a catalyst in terms of actively seeking out listeners and trying to promote the show. It seems like you have more of a backing that people will kind of join in and listen. So I'm really thankful that you're one of the hosts of the show, obviously, because you bring that dynamic and, the potential down the road to potentially bring in some guests, to kind of like up the production of our podcast here. I'm kind of excited for that. And, I'm really pleased that you brought that to the table. How long have you been thinking about that? Like, do you have a time frame to when we're going to possibly have the first guest on?
We're going to have to talk about that probably after the show, and then I can get in touch with that guest, and we'll figure something out. But it's going to be a good one, fight fans.
I'm glad you didn't name drop either, because I want to keep it kind of under wraps for now. Because me personally, of course, with what he competed in, I'm a big fan of that particular program, and whatever, we'll get into that later. But I'm just really geared up for it, and I'm pretty excited for that prospect of getting to interview an actual fighter, and little old me who's just an actual fight fan. This is big stuff to me, so I'm kind of excited and geared up for that. So I really can't wait. The problem we have is we're so close to UFC 205, and that's such a big event that we have to dedicate so much time to that. I don't want to take away from our show and ask this guest, particularly just like his opinion on the entire fight card. So we probably have to hold it till after the 205 event, but in any event, that's definitely coming down the pike. But whatever, what have you, we'll just jump into the show here. I want to kind of touch on a couple things. Most recently, well, not most recently, but something that kind of caught my eye was this whole GSP talk that we had last week about how, I said that he hasn't fought since 2013 when he got the tar kicked out of him by Big Rig Hendricks, or Little Rig now that he's not on TRT. But, I know you guys echoed the fact that St. Pierre is still a great fighter, and he definitely has plenty to offer to the sport. And while I haven't seen him fight and figured he was kind of getting washed out the bottom because of his mental problems and because of what happened in his last fight. I do respect him as a fighter. He is definitely one of my favorites of all time, and I would love to see him back for the sport. I think it would do great things. But what happened was Bisping basically called him out, saying that he wants to have St. Pierre kind of, put a kibosh to all that, terminating contract talk and get back to him. But, St. Pierre did have a message for him. I will try to explain that to you without using my St. Pierre impression because we tried in a pre-production meeting and I was told that it sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So basically what happened is, the quote is from St. Pierre, which is, it's basically him in the gym, kind of, someone's filming it on his Instagram page. Quote, "Nothing would make me more happy in the world than to fight you in Toronto, Michael. Last week I met with Ari and I made peace with Dana. I tried to resolve things, but unfortunately right now it's not happening. Hopefully things will change soon. Thank you." Now, Omar, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about this whole charade back and forth? Do you think it's smart for Bisping to go calling out people as the champ, or should he just wait on his throne and let people come to him?
I think it makes a lot of sense what Bisping's trying to do, especially if you take a look at the stage he's in his career. Right. He took a while. I mean, he kept on rolling that up, rolling the stone up the hill like Sisyphus, and just really trying. Always a bride, always a bridesmaid, never the bride. And he kind of stumbled upwards and found a way to get that strap. I really, personally, I think it was more Rockhold slept on him, but it is what it is. He did beat Hendo somewhat, I guess, theoretically.
Right. According to the judges.
Yeah, now he's exactly. But now I think he wants to get those fights. And I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve them. Absolutely, he's the face of UFC in Britain. He's been around forever, and so
he
I
was
think
definitely
it
the face of the UFC in the United States. Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
Absolutely.
He was popular as hell here.
Yeah, but yeah.
Right.
Oh, for sure, and he's he's Britain's big guy over there as well. He always guarantees sold out shows. Same as say Connor in Ireland. But I think it absolutely makes sense that he should go after the fights that are going to bring him the most dollars, because quite frankly, the other 4 or 5 in the division, I don't see him holding on to the belt for that long unless. He's other people sleep on him, which after the Rockhold fight, I don't think it's going to happen. So it absolutely does make sense. It's a big money fight. GSP would absolutely draw eyeballs, and you could play up the whole Britain versus Canada angle, which I think they won't miss out on. Some old grudges from the World History days. So it makes absolute sense.
Now, Tommy, basically what I'm thinking is, When Omar's saying, people, kind of almost slept on Bisping, it's not that they slept on him in a way. It is, I mean, it's the word that you want to use for it, of course. It's definitely, it describes what we're trying to elaborate here. But to me, it's like Bisping's been around for a while. He obviously has been a respected fighter in the sport. He's good. He's definitely no one that you could sleep on necessarily. I mean, somewhat overlooking him, because I would think that another fighter with a certain skill set could see that he's beatable. Do you think that's a fair assessment of what is going on with, what happened with Bisping's, basically his career getting to where he is now?
Well, he's definitely beatable. I mean, it's not like he's on.
Yeah, everyone is. Right. Right.
His chin is definitely suspect. What happened with the eye when Beaver kicked it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, it's. But, hey, he's got the strap now. He took it from Rockhold, and Rockhold's kind of been put in on the back burner. Right. And really, in my honest opinion, the number one contender fight is Yoel Romero and Chris Weidman, because that number one contender shot was Weidman's until he hurt his neck.
Which was the news last week when we had our show. It was Bisping called Weidman the number one contender, and I actually asked you guys, is it smart for Weidman to field questions about Bisping when he's got Romero standing in his face? So it seems like this story has a lot of layers to it. It's basically like an onion. We can kind of keep peeling layers back until we get to the point of where he actually has to fight. So I think while now there is stuff to report on, it's good to just kind of throw out opinions, but nothing's really set in stone yet. So I don't think there's going to be a resolution yet. I mean, in the coming weeks, I'm sure something's going to happen with a signing. There's been rumors about him and Diaz. But, that's Bisping's whole deal. The whole deal with St. Pierre, we're going to circle back a little bit later in the show, but he's got his own set of problems that he's got to fix first before he even worries about getting back into the octagon. You know, I do hope that happens, but like I said, you know, opposed to what Couture's kind of thrown out and what he did, if you look at that situation, I mean, he's kind of got an uphill battle ahead of him fighting these legal teams for the UFC. So, I mean, we're going to touch back on it in a second, so I don't really want to go into it in too much detail right now, but it's just something to kind of think about now. Another thing, basically what I was looking through, because I check the MMA news, I like to look at the off-color stuff. Some of the stuff which seems silly at the time is funny to me, and I want to kind of throw that out there to the fans because they do care and they want to keep abreast of the information that's going on, even as silly as it might be. But there was a report that Joe Rogan was scheduled to fight Wesley Snipes in an MMA contest in 2005. Apparently, Wesley Snipes had some legal issues going on. If you remember back, he had some tax problems and whatnot. Now Rogan's never actually fought in the octagon in any promotion or any banner, but he is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. He has had some Muay Thai training. I don't know really the extent of Wesley Snipes' training other than the fact that he's an actor and he's had stuntmen. I'm sure he has some type of martial arts training somewhere in his life. It's on some level, probably a little more than I have. But out of 100 times, how many times do you think Joe Rogan beats Wesley Snipes, Omar?
About 145, unless Wesley Snipes can actually be Nino Brown. Unless there's guns and other gang members that are able to jump in, there is no chance that Wesley Snipes beat Joe Rogan.
Right.
I mean, it's one of those quotes. Like, say the other day, I heard they asked Anthony Bourdain how it's like to roll with Joe Rogan. You know, and Bourdain goes, he's a blue belt now, the famous chef. He's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. His wife got him into it, and he goes, I don't roll with him because he's a neck cranker. He's a mean guy. He rolls hard all the time. He has one speed. That told me everything I needed to know. So unless there's guns and maybe like tame tigers involved, I don't think Wesley Snipes. Unless Wesley Snipes gets the katana from Blade, something there needs to be props in order for anyone to go.
Right, and I'm kind of
no shot.
I'm kind of stupid for asking the question to two BJJ guys, especially because he comes from that practice. But I'm assuming, Tommy, you kind of are going the same angle here. You know, what do you think? Out of 100 times, how many times does Wesley Snipes sneak out a win?
Well, to correct you first, Rogan's a black belt.
He is a black belt now?
Black belt. Yeah, he got his black belt from Eddie Bravo.
Really?
Double black belt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got to check my sources, man. I don't understand how the hell this is. I apologize, fans. I'm usually trying not to be that guy, but thank you for correcting me. We want all the correct information. As bad as I look in the process, I don't care, but thank you, Tommy. So, being the fact that he's a brown belt, I say he was going to beat him 100 times. A black belt, he ain't touching this guy. This guy is going to, submit within a minute 100 times straight, I think. You know, that kind of puts that to bed.
He's not just good on the ground. He's got, you know, he was a Taekwondo, I think he was a Taekwondo black belt. But Snipes had some martial arts training too, so it would be interesting. Mm-hmm. But the second Joe Rogan gets a hold of him, it's lights out. Right.
Now, finally, real quick, I just wanted to touch on one little thing before we get into the actual topics and the beefy part of the show. Gegard Mousasi. He recently just took care of Vitor Belfort, and, many people have speculated with the body frame of Belfort and the whole TRT, USADA issues, that Mousasi actually went on record saying he thinks that Belfort might be having some mental problems because of the TRT use. I mean, think about it. We're all men. Everybody's taken their shirt off, looked at themselves in the mirror after they've gotten out of the shower, before they've gotten in, whatever. I think that looking at a physique that's been, ripped up, jacked up, you've been one of the bigger, more muscular fighters in the sport to date, and then all of a sudden to come in and to basically look like flabby dad bod, basically, for an MMA fighter, that is, not for me or anything. He still looks fine to me, but, comparing his body on the TRT or before you started testing to now, do you think that might play a role in your confidence, basically, knowing that you don't really bring what you brought to other fights and to other cards on the sport? I mean, Tommy, what do you think? I'll let you start off with this one.
Well, what it is it might have something to do with the confidence, but Dan Henderson was on a podcast recently, and they were asking him, how he feels now because he's, he hasn't been allowed to take the TRT, and he says he feels fine. It's just harder for him to recoup after his practices during a fight camp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't. He doesn't bounce back right away. The thing
Right.
with Vitor is, I don't think we've ever seen him clean until now.
Right.
You know, he
Right.
fought in Pride, where in their contract they were tested for everything else other than steroids. So those guys were juiced to the gills.
Right.
You know, when he first came in the UFC, they weren't really testing for anything. When he, you know, punched Wanderlei Silva's soul out.
Right. It was kind of in that gray area, that fringe time in the sport where you can kind of sneak in before, like, they really came down with rules and you know, all these regulations and sanctions and whatnot. So I think you're right with that. Omar, I'm trying to think of a way to field this exact thing. Like, I would say, like, he's kind of nuts for saying this about Belfort, but in a way he's right. You know, like, it's got to play a role in it. Like, you're not as strong, you're not recovering, so you feel a little more tired every day. You just that has to all play into the confidence level. Don't you think, the psyche of a fighter going into a big match like that?
Well, absolutely, and I think Mousasi, I don't know, he's adding insult to injury. The fight happened. There's always been rumors of Belfort being mentally weak, though. I can even think
Right.
back to, you know, his first few losses after he was the phenom, you know, like Tommy said, punching a hole through Wanderlei Silva 35 times in like a minute. When he faced adversity in fights, it was kind of a known thing that if you put pressure on him, he was going to crack. So it's always been suspect. Like his mental chain has always been very, 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 very weak and kind of easy to crack. And they attribute that to being, you know, he went the whole Jesus route. I mean, he's always been kind of, you know, the full speed ahead, even if it's out to the fringes, you know. And he's always been on enough testosterone to power a T-Rex. So there's that. And once you take that away from him, there's no way you're going to have the same sort of mental toughness that you received from those extra sources that you're going to bring to the table. But I'm not a fan of Mousasi piling on. Really,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. You know, I could see where he's got the sour grapes action, because I don't think he thinks that he's getting the opportunities that he deserves. But you know what? If you want the opportunities, you know, don't get flash knocked out by Uriah Hall. I mean, don't
Right.
No need
Prove
to
it.
be,
Prove it. Right.
you know, making fun of. Yeah, you don't got to pile on. He's an OG in the game. You know, let Vitor and
Right.
Jesus ride off into the sunset. But yeah, I do think there's a lot of things going on between Belfort's ears. There are.
Right, and it seems like this is a new leaf for Mousasi. He's always been somewhat vanilla in the interviews. I mean, there's a little language barrier there. You don't know how to articulate what you want to say exactly correctly, but it seems like he's kind of like flying a little more off the cuff, off the handle nowadays. Being a little less vanilla, which is kind of exciting to me. You know, you always want to tune into those interviews to see what he's going to say next, but this is kind of on par with what he's been doing lately. And, you know, while I see no problem with it, I mean, it's kind of like you said, it's kind of piling on after the fact that he beat him and Belfort's going through his issues. So, I mean, you never know what kind of problems the guy has at home. You never want to get on a guy that had depression issues or whatever. So, you know, if anything ever does happen because of this, of what his issues are he's dealing with Belfort, like, I would feel bad that news came out that way. But, you know, hey, this is the fight game. You're popular. You're making plenty of money. You know, like, you're in the spotlight. That's going to happen. You just got to take the good with the bad. Moving on, I do want to say something. For the second week in a row, we do have breaking news here on the podcast. I was just informed by one of my sources that the Ultimate Fighter season, this current season, is actually canceled. They won't air any more episodes. Somehow it got leaked that Tim Elliott, the one who actually just won his last fight on the last episode, actually went on to win the show. Obviously now there's no reason to watch. I'm kind of bummed out because I love Ultimate Fighter. I'd watch it anyway, but I just like the insight into the fighters and whatnot. But Tim Elliott was the guy who he fought Benavidez, lost. He had UFC fights, he got cut after 3 losses and basically built himself back up into trying to earn a spot on the promotion. But now that he's come out, basically won the whole show and it's been leaked, they canceled the series. I don't know if they're going to cancel it going forward. Who the hell knows what they're doing nowadays with the UFC, but it's kind of a bummer. But I guess basically what we take from it, breaking news, Tim Elliott will be fighting Demetrius Johnson for the strap. So, you know, I guess that's news in a way. It kind of bums me out. I don't know if Ultimate Fighter had much of a following anymore, but
rest in peace, Tim Elliott. That's all I gotta say is rest in peace, Tim Elliott. That's the news I'm getting. There's no way. DJ is just on another level. But yeah, it is sad.
Zero interest in this season. Zero. I watched one episode.
I have interest in the show just because it's something to watch. I mean, Henry Cejudo bothers the shit out of me, dude. I don't know what it is about him. He looks like a goofball. He tries to say all the right things. Benavidez called him out many a times, like, dude, you're nobody's role model. Stop trying to be this guy. Nobody wanted to aspire to be Henry Cejudo in the MMA. You know, like, stop trying to be this, you know, this someone to look up to and just be yourself. This is the fight game. We're trying to fight each other. You know, like, let's stop putting on this show here. So, I mean, it did kind of frustrate me watching the show, but I was willing to look past it because I wanted to see some of these guys that were up-and-comers. I mean, they're all champions, so they all know what it takes to win. But, you know, whatever, just to put a bow on that, I am pretty bummed out. But Tim Elliott will be fighting Demetrius Johnson and losing to him for the 25-pound strap whenever that fight's scheduled. So,
no chance.
Right.
No
moving on.
No chance.
No chance at all. Absolutely. I don't think anyone has a chance to beat Johnson. Whatever. I think he might be the best all time when it's said and done, but pound for pound. But
I agree.
Basically, what happened last week on Friday, there was the Bellator card. There was a couple good fights on it. I mean, the main event was okay. Kendall Grove fought Alexander Shlemenko. We were all correct in our predictions. Shlemenko was able to knock him out, hit him with a pretty vicious body shot, nice little left to the liver, and followed it up with a headshot. Kendall Grove went down. Shlemenko won after the long layoff. Lashley won with a ground and pound. There was a head kick knockout. There was an armbar submission. It really had everything from a fight fan perspective. Omar, did you actually get to watch the card?
Yes, I did.
What did you think of it? I mean, were you impressed? From a fight fan perspective, were you impressed? Were you happy with it?
Absolutely. I liked how they're tightening up their production every show. I think they're fully cognizant of the fact that they're the number two, which is not a bad spot to be in when the number one is the monolith like the UFC. You know, so I love what they're doing. And they're putting out a consistently solid card. I don't think they're not overextending themselves, so they're not trying to put on too many shows and then distilling the card. I think they're keeping it correct, and you know it was impressive to see. Although I did bring it up last week, a podcast that I listened to brought it up this week too. I'd like to see Lashley fight in a place that actually checks for pharmaceuticals. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. And then Shlemenko, making Bas Rutten proud with that liver shot. I think they felt that in Hawaii. I think the entire island got a little bit of a body pain after that one.
The air kind of like
Kendall.
you kind of heard the collective air leaving Hawaii over there, right?
Oh, it was sad.
Funny.
They got knocked more towards Alaska. They got uppercutted a little bit up the Pacific coast there, but it was tough. It was great. I liked it. It is what it was. I think you'd agree.
Right. Now, it's interesting you brought up the production. They are getting better with that. There was a little segment, and me and Tommy have kind of touched on it. Tommy made a few jokes, and it's funny because I was set to make those same jokes about it. They had a segment where it was like the presidential debate. They have a fight coming up, Tito Ortiz versus Chael Sonnen. Obviously, these are two big-name guys, marketable fighters. But they had this debate where they were kind of going back and forth, like poking at each other. Now, Tito definitely knows how to talk, but sometimes it seems put on. Chael obviously is put on, but he's more of a showman in the fact that it's like WWE style. So I'm more willing to accept his style of it. But, Tommy, did you have a specific critique or have anything you wanted to say about that particular segment right there?
It was just it was stupid.
Right.
It was stupid.
Right.
There was no point to it. It doesn't get me excited to watch the fight. I'm a Chael Sonnen fan, so of course I'm going to be excited, and I really can't stand Tito. So it will be nice to see Sonnen wrestle hump him for 3 rounds and just smash his face in. But first of all, Omar, how dare you make that comment about Bobby Lashley? How dare you?
I know. I'm not a doctor, so allegedly. Sorry, I don't want to get sued or have him show up at my house. Either one.
You definitely don't want the latter of that. That's for sure.
No. Good Lord, no.
But yeah, you know what it is, and I love Bellator. I really do. because, again, it's more MMA.
Right.
But their problem is they're kind of in bed with Total Nonstop Action Pro Wrestling. You know, a lot of their guys do cross promotions, like when Rampage
so
tried to be a pro wrestler.
I echo those statements there. It does have that feel to me. I'm sorry. I just want to interject there with that, but continue.
But, yeah, well, you noticed that when Stephan Bonner was supposed to fight Tito Ortiz, when he did the whole reveal of Tito's old trainer that he had a problem with. Like, it was just very, very pro wrestling. But you know what? Aside from that little stupid stuff like that and the gimmick fight that they put on, the rest of the product is great. I like Bellator. And I like World Series of Fighting, too. It's nice to have more than one option. It really is. Competition's a good thing, but they're really not competition. They're really not competition
it's just a secondary. It's a secondary market almost. It's a nice place for fighters on the back end of their career or up and coming fighters to land to kind of like promote themselves, a little bit of self-promotion, get their name out there. It's free, so you got the casual fan kind of just like, they'll land on the Spike channel while it's on and maybe like stick to it and you know, you might gain a couple fans that way. So I think it's good. Now, my problem with the promotion the production of the actual fight, I'll be quick. I just wanted to make this statement. I think it's so annoying that they basically review every fighter or give their expert opinion. They almost oversaturate it with that. Like Jimmy Smith, I think that's the guy's name. He was on that one reality show where him and his cousin or brother would go like fighting like these different techniques, and I don't know. It was a good show when it was on. I can't remember the name. I got to look it up for next week. But I just think that asking him his opinion of every fighter, every damn fight, is kind of stupid. Like, show more highlights and knockouts. Have more stories like they do basically on like an NFL pregame production where, you know, they have a reporter go cover a piece on a specific fighter that takes 5 or 10 minutes of the production time instead of like this like kind of like dead air back and forth of like almost like a live broadcast, but it's not. I mean, they're obviously not going to be on the UFC level, and they're working towards getting a better product in place. So I respect that, and they do have to promote their fights with the whole debate thing. So I know what they're trying to do. They're proactive with it. I just think that maybe they should back it off a little bit and do more of that, the viewer engaged, because obviously when those things are on and it's boring, I mean, you could just flip the channel and forget to go back, and then you're not watching the promotion anymore. So I don't know. I think down the road they might want to think about doing something like that. But you know, in any event, what I want to do now with this portion of the show is kind of get to know the host a little bit more. I don't want to take a long time doing this because whatever, I know, you know, if the listeners have been listening to the show for the past 2 weeks, they know that you two train. You both train BJJ. I would like to get to know where you guys train. A question I have for you, Tommy, real quick, I'll ask first, like, where have you trained in, I know you live in New Jersey, obviously, so what gym were you training out of?
I've been training at Madama Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out of Toms River, New Jersey.
Okay.
It's I love it there, man. You know, Josh, who's the head instructor, he was at my wedding. You know, when the company I was working for went out of business, he had me, you know, paint and fix up the old school that we were in before we got our newer facility. Got some fighters coming in on the pro circuit now. Got some fighters going in on the amateur circuit. We just had our first female fight on the amateur circuit, who's also my son's godmother.
Nice.
It's awesome, dude. You know, if you've never trained before, but you like the whole team feel, go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. You get that team feel. You know, it's
I would think that there's a high level of camaraderie there with the people you've basically rolled with. You know, you literally shed and share and swap blood, sweat, tears, the whole nine. You know, when rolling with people. So it only stands to reason that if you do that with any other sport, of course, something as intimate as, you know, a mixed martial artist or mixed martial arts practice, that this stuff is going to happen. Omar, what about you? What are you, from New York? I think I'm trying to get that. I don't want to prod too much into your personal life, but where do you train out of?
Yep, I'm here in upstate New York. I bounced back and forth. I grew up in Queens, and then I went out to Massachusetts, and that area is where I started my jiu-jitsu. I trained a little bit of taekwondo before then. But then, you know, the classic story of getting dumped on my head by a good grappler, I said, wait a second, maybe I got to learn some of this ground karate, as they still call it ground karate back then. Yeah. But, and then I took it, I started in Hartford, Connecticut. It was a Hoist Gracie school out there. I got my blue from Hoist. It was and I was so young in jiu-jitsu that I didn't know how big of a deal that was. I really didn't know that it was going to take me a long time to keep progressing after that. I was used to the Taekwondo, 3 months you getting a belt now.
Right. Did you ever look back and kind of wish you knew what was going on then so you can kind of cherish it a little more? I mean, living in that moment,
absolutely.
I would assume that's a huge thing for you, especially knowing now what it meant when it happened,
Oh, for sure. It was crazy. I did a move, and I think Hoist saw the move, and he said, give this guy a blue belt. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Didn't know. I had no idea what was going on. And then, when I tell the story now, they're like, wait a second, you got your blue from Hoist, and it was off of an actual, you caught somebody? I said, yeah. They're like,
right.
What? So.
Right, and this is the first I'm hearing of it. Yeah. I'm kind of blown away by it. I mean, even Tommy, like you guys are pretty connected with guys who have actually had their feet inside the octagon, have touched a belt before, have been actively successful in the sport, and to me that's huge. I mean, what got me into MMA really is when we were younger, we would watch. My friends would go wrestle in high school. I would go to the matches, and we would all meet up at my friend's house for the weekend. We would put the TV guide on the TV, and we would literally have, like, bracket tournaments where we would no face shots, but it would be, like grappling and body shots where we would go and kind of have, like, a tournament thing. So that type of, like, engaging in the sport really got me into it. And, of course, being a male, I love the whole combat of the fight, and being that it's, like, it's in a controlled environment, I think that's great, and it really drew me to the sport. I mean, I'm assuming you guys were in, something drove you to liking mixed martial arts or, jiu-jitsu, like you said, before you guys actually started to actively train. So, Tommy, what drew you to the sport initially? I mean, did you wrestle in high school? I can't remember.
Yeah, I wrestled with your brother.
Right, okay. I remember, right. Okay.
But
I thought so. Go ahead.
I was a fan from 1993.
Okay, right.
As you remember, back in the day, people had hot boxes, so you can get the
all the
channels.
Yep.
And I was sitting down with my dad, who I didn't know until he told me at the time, but he had done, the Japanese version of jiu-jitsu when he was younger.
Oh, that's great.
We're watching. So we're sitting down watching that, and I'll never forget it when Hoist came out in his gi. And they said that he practices Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My dad started laughing. I was like, what's so funny? He goes, he's going to rip this guy's head off. And I was like, but look at him. He's small.
Right, looking at him, he's also
a boxer.
Right. Right.
He was fighting a boxer. My dad goes, I guarantee you he's going to submit this guy. And he turns around and he did it. So now I was a fan from day one.
Right. Real quickly, I just want to kind of extend on that. When I was younger, like I had a good friend who I'm really not in touch with anymore, but he was a good wrestler back in Colonia. I'll say Nick Salento, Joe Harris, those guys, they were pretty successful in high school wrestling. So they kind of educated me a little more on the actual sport because, of course, boxing was the big thing. So you heard, oh, this guy's a big puncher. He's probably going to knock this guy's head off. I didn't know too much about getting caught on the ground, like, falling to your back, rolling, running guard on somebody and being able to be successful out of that position. All I thought was if somebody's on top of you in a fight, you got to get out from under him and get back to your feet as fast as possible when I was younger. So it was really nice to get that kind of inner perspective from my friends who actually had grappling background, and it really made me respect all fighters right away. So it was a really good thing. Now, Omar, I mean, you obviously have, almost equally as extensive background with mixed martial arts. So were you drawn to the sport prior to you training or after you training?
First off, I just want to interject real quick. Carl, you're saying you did no headshots and then grappling and body shots. Are you saying you practiced pancrase back in the day?
I'm sorry.
That sounds just you were a king of pancrase back in the day is what that sounds like. That's amazing. I mean, and Tommy will agree. No headshots and body shots and grappling, that sounds an awful lot Japanese shoot fighting to me. So I don't think you need don't sell yourself short in the least. Yes,
I
they
appreciate
did.
that. Thank you.
Carl was throwing them. Get out of here. But yeah, I was always a fan. I mean, I hate to be cliche, but I was a fan of Bruce Lee from way back in the day. And his approach to, use what works and throw away what doesn't and then test it out, I was always a fan of. That's what got me to take that fateful first grappling match and get destroyed and say, wait a second. So, the whole concept of mixed martial arts always appealed to me in terms of, find the quickest solution to the question or the puzzle or the problem in front of you. And, seeing it in an octagon, it's one of my favorite things to do to this day.
Right. That's really cool. I'm really happy that I actually I thought about this because I wanted to get to know you guys myself, and then it's good to get it out there for the listeners. Now, I mean, of course, I never had training, but it's funny because, I would watch these guys, and they're great wrestlers, so I'd watch them fight for, literally 10 minutes. There would be 4 to 5 different matches between the two, all my friends going at it, and it would be all grappling. As soon as I stepped in, bang, punching the dude in the chest, hitting him in the ribs. So, I always had that puncher mentality. Not to say I'm great. I mean, I think I could scrap if I had to. I mean, if a guy trains and knows any type of practice, I'm not going to fare well with him, but I would say I'm pretty heavy-handed in that regard, but it was really fun, kind of doing it on our own. We would walk away with injuries. It was kind of like a little bootleg fight club, I guess you could call it. We weren't hitting each other in the face, but things happened there. So, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, elaborating on this a little bit further, there's all types of different fighters out there. There's all types of different personalities. You got the Conor McGregor all the way down to the boring guy who barely even talks. I don't think Yoel Romero even fielded a question at the 205 press conference. Meanwhile, every single question went to McGregor in some facet, one way or the other. But, what I look for in a fighter, of course, they have to respect the practice, respect everything, respect other fighters. But it is a promotion. It is entertainment still. So you're going to talk shit. You're going to want to promote your fights. You're going to want to self-promote. You're going to want to try to get in the head of your opponent. So I kind of look for that in a fighter. My favorite fighters from just that perspective would be like the Diaz brothers. They say what they want. They have their own agenda. They don't care what people think of them because they're, frankly, their views on mixed martial arts and MMA in general is spot on almost every time they answer a question. I mean, I think they're just a little too ignorant that they can't elaborate as much as they want to. But I really just hate the vanilla fighter, the guy that goes out there and cranks an armbar and the guy's tapping for fucking 2 minutes and he still cranks it even deeper. I hate guys like that. You could really ruin a career for a guy doing something like that. So it really just bothers me when I see guys like that. So, I mean, in terms of what you guys look for in fighters, where do you stand with that? Omar, what do you think?
I look for a fighter. I agree with that. I mean, and I think you were mentioning that Paul Harris character going and maiming people. I hate that.
Exactly.
If I saw him walking in the street, I'd probably try to hit him with my car. I wouldn't try to grapple him because I want to walk away, but I'd definitely try to hit him with a giant vehicle of some sort. But in terms of favorite fighters, I like fighters that I can tell are having fun. That's usually my biggest thing. Where because that to me tells me that it's great that they're getting paid, but they'd probably be doing it for $0 or $25, like in a Denny's parking lot. Over a grand
those are the guys that come up. Right, those are guys that come up doing, not earning $1. Their girlfriend basically supports them, and you hear these stories, especially on Ultimate Fighter, where I've been training for 6 years, not earning $1, and finally I'm getting to a point, and I love this woman for standing by me the whole time. Those are the guys that really get it. They're enveloped in this whole, I guess, art of it, the artistry of it. I mean, what about you? What do you look for in a fighter in terms of what would lead you to be a fan of this gentleman or woman?
Well, I mean, Frankie Edgar has to be the perfect template for any kind of fighter. I mean, this is a guy that Dana White told.
Of course, the fighter out of Tom's River is gonna love Frankie Edgar. Big surprise.
Well. I mean, he's a nice guy.
No, I respect Edgar. Edgar's a beast. I love him. Yeah, what he does for the sport and charity and everything, he's a great guy.
Well, it's not even that. It's just Dana White told him, you're too small for the 155 division and wouldn't put him on the Ultimate Fighter show. What does he do? Gets into the UFC anyway and ends up knocking BJ Penn off the pedestal that nobody could knock him off of. He keeps his mouth shut. You know, he goes balls to the wall for 5 rounds. I mean, his fights with Gray Maynard were probably some of the best fights in UFC history.
Oh, my goodness.
Bar none.
These guys went to war, dude. I remember loving those fights, man. I would watch them fights over and over and over, knowing the outcome, not even caring, because what they did to each other in there was amazing. How do they even have those chances?
It was the MMA version of Ward versus Gotti.
Right, yeah, that's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
Just caution to they just destroyed each other. It was beautiful.
Right.
It was beautiful. And, you know, like I said, he keeps his mouth shut. He's not a trash talker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what I like. That's what I like. A guy that just goes in there, takes care of business, and then that's it. That's what I like.
Now, in terms of, you know, even elaborating further on this, kind of putting a bow on it, where we're getting to this, you know, we see what we like in fighters, like certain personalities that we like, actual fighters that we've followed and kind of, you know, drawn to, growing up watching the sport. Like, there's got to be a couple in everybody's list of you know, favorite fighters. You know, obviously Randy Couture, those guys, like these are legends in the sport. So everyone's going to be fans of those guys. I haven't even met anybody that's not like Randy Couture or Chuck Liddell yet. It's, you know, it's just those guys kind of like, I've kept them off my list because I'm more of like I don't know, I want to like look into it. Like Matt Brown was one of my favorite fighters of all time. The Immortal, the guy came up on the Ultimate Fighter. He's been in some wars where you thought, how is this guy going to pull this one off? I mean, it seemed like for a while there, it was every fight that he was losing big early, and then he would come back and, you know, wind up knocking the guy out or just like swarming him with his, you know, his pace. And, you know, those are the fighters that I love, like him, Nick Diaz, Nate Diaz, you know, of course, Rumble. Donald Cerrone's such a gamer. He was always down to fight. Rich Franklin, I used to love for a while. That dude was tough as hell. And, you know, what he did to Nate Quarry, first of all, that shouldn't have ever happened. That fight should have been stopped well before that guy got his face beat in with that left. But, you know, watching him go down like that, that was a vicious knockout, that dude. And, you know, of course, Bisping, because of, I don't know, I just liked his character coming out and the way he came up, and he's been a fighter forever. So, obviously, we talked about it last week. I can't help it, my Irish pride. Conor McGregor is my favorite fighter right now. I don't want to say of all time just yet. It's kind of a tie still. I would like to see what he does, and I want him to kind of like finish his career on this upswing that he's had. I'm assuming he's going to start losing fights at some point in his life, but, you know, hopefully that happens sooner than later for you, Tommy. You'd want to see that happen tomorrow, but, you know, those are really the guys that I've kind of gravitated towards growing up. You know, Omar, what are some of the fighters that you followed, you know, in your day?
Well, the first fighter that always comes to mind, especially when I go, I like watching guys that have fun. Might be a throwback. If you don't know, definitely I suggest to all the listeners to look him up. Kazushi Sakuraba. Anybody
Sakuraba,
that
absolutely.
can go,
The Brazilian killer.
Anybody that yeah, I'll tell you, anybody that can go to a weigh-in and Sharpie a six-pack onto his body at the weigh-in and then proceed to give the guy that he's kind of joshing a whole hell of a lot of problems in the fight, gets my vote. He always looked like he was having fun, never took himself too seriously. In Japan, he's an absolute legend, and in terms of modern MMA, because he's a little bit of a throwback, I think he set the template. You know, as much as I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he set the template for kind of how wrestling and catch wrestling can be a big negating force on Jiu-Jitsu. So I think he drove the evolution of the sport forward by leaps and bounds. And then the only other guy I'd probably say, again, another throwback. I'm not trying to be a hipster by any means for
nah, it's cool, dude.
World, but a Boss Rutan. I can't say enough about
most known for his. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but most known for his hilarious accent and some of those funny, stupid videos he put out, like as a bouncer. You know, like, oh my goodness, hilarious. Look up Boss Rutan on YouTube, guys. Any listeners out there? Go ahead.
Absolutely, yeah. You said this about my wife. Now I have to break your leg. I mean, I live for the day where I can actually say that to somebody. I really do. That's a bucket list quote for me personally. So those are my two favorite guys off the top.
Nice. Now, Tommy, you already stated that Edgar was one of your favorites. Do you have anybody else that you've kind of followed and liked as a fan, or, you know, been a fan of more or less?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if we're going to go for throwbacks, you got to throw Renzo in there. His fights in Pride were awesome. You know,
right.
his fight with Sakuraba, where Sakuraba broke his arm and he did not tap.
Yeah.
He did not.
I mean, come on. We've broken bones before.
Yeah.
I would tap every time if that happened to me. Shit.
Yeah,
and he was mad.
You know,
he was mad that they called that fight. Remember?
Yes, he was pissed.
If you watch his DVD Legacy, when he's in the back, he said, he goes, I was in the worst pain possible, but I did not want to give my opponent the pleasure of seeing me in pain. So he's in the back, he's laughing, smiling, his arms in like a makeshift sling. You know, he just solidified what it was to be a tough guy. You know, he took every fight possible. He didn't care. He didn't pick and choose his opponents. Whoever they put in front of him, he fought. Fedor, Crow Cop, you know, I love the classics, man. You know, those Pride
hey, there's
fights
nothing wrong with that, dude. There's nothing wrong.
Those Pride fights were probably the best fights ever. The 10-minute first round. I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah. First of all, me and my brother, we talk about it a lot. We said that's such a more pure form. Like this 5-minute round crap where they have, you know, you're in a position and then, you know, the round ends and you stand up. That's for entertainment purposes only. Like true fight form would be a 25-minute round. One round if it's a title fight, or a 15-minute fight. You know, one round going and see what happens. If you're in trouble, you got to get out yourself. That's what the practice and the sport is. You know, you want to get yourself out of trouble, try to get yourself into a better spot. That's the whole lure of, you know, being in a bad spot and proving that you have heart of gold and that you just have a will of a maniac and whatnot. You know, like, so I do agree with you there when you said the 10-round first round thing. You know, that to me, that's more of a pure form of fighting. So, I mean, it's good. I'm glad we get to know a little more about you guys, and you know, I'm sure the fight fans listening to the show can give two shits about what I think and what my background is. So I'm really glad to just, you know, share this conversation with you guys. You know, I'm going to take this forward with me for a long time. You know, I just appreciate getting to share the airwaves with you guys for an hour every week. You know, it's going to be fun, and I'm really looking forward to learning something from you guys, and in turn, kind of educating the fans out there, the listeners. So I really appreciate it, and you know, keep up the work, guys. I mean, you guys are doing a great job so far. So, you know, moving on really quick, I just wanted to touch on the Jon Jones issue recently. This guy, like Omar so eloquently put in the description of our show, somebody take social media away from this guy. What the hell is he doing? He looks like such
they got to take his phone away. They got to take his phone away. They got to take his computer away. I mean, how do you put out a tweet like that? How do you do that? I mean,
now elaborate what you're talking about, Tommy, about the whole Cialis thing. Like, elaborate so the fans know what we're talking about here.
Well, he put out a tweet the other day saying that steroids don't teach you how to be a good fighter. Steroids don't teach you the timing and the smarts for it. So in one breath, you're saying you didn't take steroids, but then in a tweet,
you're defending it.
You're defending, you know, okay, well, if somebody takes steroids, it doesn't give them the smarts. No, you're right. It doesn't give them the smarts. I think the whole USADA thing is bullshit, but it's against the rules. So either you did it or you didn't do it. Why would you put something out there like that? Because he might be coming back very soon.
Right, and you don't want anything that's going to be detrimental to that return. Exactly. And now, while steroids doesn't, you know, up your fight IQ and whatnot, it does help you recover. You are stronger. I mean, you have, while you're on the steroids, you're fine. Like, all those things happen. And, you know, being able to recover for a fight, being able to recover for the next day of training and go just as hard as you did the day before without feeling any ill effects the night, like, that's something in your favor. That's a benefit to using an illegal substance that other guys aren't. So while one guy's not using steroids, he's tired as hell the next day, maybe can't even put in the same training session that he can. You're going balls to the wall like a maniac because you feel like a 14-year-old prepubescent boy, you know, with all the energy in the world. And not to mention, you're stronger. Your punches land harder. When you grapple, you can throw a guy against the cage. You know, your dirty boxing and all that. Like, that helps you there. So I just think he's a fool for even saying this now. The claims were that the substance that he gave was contaminated. Apparently it wasn't labeled correctly or whatever, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen going forward, but it seemed to me upon first reading it from the fan perspective that this might be swept under the rug going forward, and he might actually be coming back. So for him to say something like that, it's got to be the most foolish thing in the world. I mean, wouldn't you agree with that, Omar? Like, why is he kind of maybe, potentially throwing dirt on his own name? So when he has these hearings or trying to get back into UFC, this could potentially prohibit that, Wouldn't you think that would be foolish?
His lawyer needs to take some lawyer steroids and wrestle John Jones down and tell him, listen, you got to stop this. You're killing yourself. It's like O.J. Simpson coming out with that book, If I Did It, during the first trial. No, you got to wait till stuff dies down, and then you can start talking about, well, this is how I would have done it if I did do it, and this is how I would have gotten away with it. No, he's getting in his own way. He can't really, just needs to sit back, be at least play the penitent, person, say I'm sorry, and let's see some fight. I think it's the type of character flaws that we're seeing here are the same type of character flaws that thinks that he can, hit a pregnant lady, run away, run back, grab the drugs and the money, and then run away again. I mean, somebody needs to sit him down and say, sir, you could be the greatest of all time if you don't beat yourself up. All right? Something needs to happen.
Right. You're defeating yourself. And, I just want to just touch briefly on something you said. Last week it was beating the hearing back in Matt Hamill. This week it was take lawyer steroids and wrestle John Jones back into relevance. That's, this guy, he is such a wordsmith, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be for no other reason than Omar, you should be tuning into the show to hear what he's going to say next. So that's just beautifully put. I love it. All right, this whole John Jones thing, I mean, it looks like it's going to have some more layers. I really don't want to go too in detail, Lou, because, we could literally sit here for another hour discussing him because, of everything that's been going on with, with the war back and forth. But, we got about 10 minutes left of the show, so I wanted to just save some time so we got to everything. I don't want to skip over too much and skim over too much, but I definitely want to touch on enough so we get all the information out to our fans because they deserve to know what's going on in the MMA world, There's been a couple new fights that are potentially in the works. The Diaz-Bisping fight, I did even ask you guys in the pre-production meeting because I was unsure if this actually was signed. Apparently, it's just, in the works now. It's something that they're talking about. They're trying to get it going for 206. But, the Pettis-Holloway fight, Anthony Pettis, Max Holloway, is actually on for 206. And, I mean, guys, 206 needed some work. They only had really one fight that even got me moist at all when I was looking at it last week. So I looked at this card. I was like, well, obviously they have all their stars fighting on 205, so there's not really much left over, spill over to go for 206. But apparently there is some fights left in the making that could potentially juice this card back up. I mean, Pettis is always an exciting fighter. Max Holloway took Conor to the brink and basically moved better than anyone else ever fought him. I mean, Mendes got some takedowns and won the round or whatever, and Diaz did actually win, but Holloway was 45-pounder, and that fight was pretty good. They both respected each other after. What do you see the outcome being in the Pettis-Holloway fight, Omar?
I think that's going to be a back-and-forth, entertaining brawl. I love that the two of them, they just don't back down. Neither one of them is going to really give an inch. Neither one of them is going to ask for an inch. I believe that the matchup plays into each other's strengths very, very well. I love Pettis at the new weight class. I think he's a much better star there. I think he has a much better shot of making a big impact. So I'm very, like you said, I'm very, very excited. But I could see it going either way because Holloway is no joke. Holloway is a dangerous, he's a dangerous kid, and he's only getting better. The things he does from fight to fight, those improvements, he's in that stage of a person's career where he seems to reinvent himself every 3 to 6 months, every fight camp. So I'm super excited for that fight.
Right. And while we do have that from Holloway, obviously Pettis is a little more well-known to the casual fan. Most notably that insane kick off the cage on Ben Henderson. I think that was WEC, right? If I'm not mistaken, when that happened?
Yep, the Showtime kick.
Yes.
Right,
yep,
right. Now, with all that information that I just said, Tommy, how do you see this fight going? Like how, what way? Stand up, brawl, back and forth? I mean.
I don't know, man. I think it's going to be a brawl, but I think if it gets to the ground, Pettis will probably submit him.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can't see Pettis losing, but it's not a knock on Holloway. I just think Pettis is, like Omar said, he looks good at this weight class. I don't think it hurts Holloway much if he does take a loss to Pettis. I don't think it hurts Pettis as much either if he takes the loss. I mean, as long as these guys keep going in the right direction, they're both young. They both have some fire and fight left in them. So it's going to definitely be an interesting fight. I'm just looking forward to the UFC actually beefing up that card a little bit and to seeing what they have to offer. If Diaz Bisping does also get added, that's going to be definitely something to watch. And I might even go out to a bar and watch it at an event instead of streaming it off the internet illegally. But whatever. The two other fights that they just came out with, Dominic Cruz fighting Cody Garbrandt at 207. Cruz basically, I don't want to say he's untouchable, but he's kind of sitting atop that division, letting everything sift out under him. Do you guys see Cody giving him a run for his money, potentially beating him, or is this just going to be another, fight that's basically one-sided? Or if it does go, back and forth a little bit, won't ever have Cruz being in jeopardy in anything? Tommy, what do you think?
Garbrandt's got some dynamite in those hands.
Oh yeah.
But Cruz is a master at not getting touched. He knows how to get out of the way. So, I mean, it's probably going to be Cruz by decision, but I think if Garbrandt connects with one of those shots to his chin, I think we're going to have a new champ.
Right.
That's what I think.
Nothing would excite me more, but I like Cruz. He's a likable guy. He's good for the sport. So if he winds up winning, it's just it's going to be boring, but whatever. I'll take it. I'm probably leaning more towards Cruz, but like you said, I could see Cody knocking him out. I really don't like Cody much for the antics that he pulled on Conor, trying to get in his face and make a name for himself by kind of like sticking up for Faber and being Faber's like daddy in a way when they were getting into it on the Ultimate Fighter. But
it's okay when Conor does it though. It's okay when
Conor wasn't even talking.
Okay
Conor wasn't talking to Cody though. He was just talking about the Dillashaw thing, and Cody kind of stepped in and. Well, that's how I remember it. As a Conor fan, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but whatever. No, but whatever. He does not want work with Conor yet. I will wear that crown respectfully, sir. Thank you very much. All right. Well, we really are winding down quickly here on the end of the show. There is a couple things that I would love to get to. It looks like we're not going to get to everything. We'll probably just spill it over for next week. Little stuff, nothing major. I do want to touch on a couple things. The UFC did cut 13 fighters. It's not really news because none of these guys really were much for the sport. The most notable guy is Bigfoot, obviously. He's been 0 for his last three knockouts. I think he lost like 7 of his last 8 fights. But like you guys were saying, he actually needs the TRT, and he needs this stuff medically for himself. So he's going over to sign in Russia, and it looks like he's going to kind of, I don't want to say revive his fight career, but he's going to be allowed to do things that he wouldn't be able to do in UFC. So I'm happy for him that he's at least still making money. You guys have an opinion on this, really?
You see, it's hard to tell because I don't know much about the kid that he's fighting.
Right. Exactly.
His chin is suspect now because, like we said, he hasn't been able to use the TRT. But
right.
Back on the TRT, you get the fight that you had with Mark Hunt. That was the best heavyweight fight I have seen in a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. I have to go back and watch it. I don't really remember this. I don't remember it. I know you said that before, and I wanted to go back and watch it. I'm sure I watched it because I try to watch every fight that's on, because I just love the sport. But I don't really remember too much of it. And you're saying it's such a great fight. I might have just missed it. It might have been something where I had to go with my girlfriend to, like, pick flowers or something really corny. Who the hell knows what the hell happened at that day. But I would definitely like to go back and check that out for next week. But, other news that's coming out, Shane Carwin actually signs with Rizin. I think we touched on it last week. Apparently, there was a rumor that he was going to fight Fedor. That fight's now off. He said Fedor declined it. Good. He reportedly declined an offer to fight with Bellator, also Carwin. But yeah, exactly. So I'm happy to see Carwin back. He's gonna earn some money late in his career, and he's an exciting fighter. He's got knockout power. Anyone with knockout power, I'm excited to see. Really, lastly, we have no time here, really. So I just want to touch one thing. Faber's retiring after UFC on Fox 22. We touched last week, how is he even still getting a fight? And then it turns out this week it's going to be his last fight. Omar, really quickly in closing, do you have a favorite Faber moment?
The heart that he showed against Aldo, by far.
Right.
That
Okay.
heart was my favorite moment. Mm-hmm.
Tommy, do you have a favorite moment?
Yeah. When Mike Brown knocked him out twice.
My favorite moment was when Conor owned him.
Oh.
My favorite moment was when Conor owned him verbally on the Ultimate Fighter show. Of course, because I love Conor. I just think that banter back and forth was so great. If you guys didn't have a chance to listen to it, go back and look at some of those old interviews. Not even you guys, the listeners out there. Go back and listen to some of those old interviews. They're just, it's gold. They go back and forth. They like each other, but they still poke fun at each other. It's just great. But I guess that's basically where we're going to have to wrap it up, guys. Anything we didn't touch on, we'll get to for next week's show. But again, podcast number 2 is in the books. Love working with you guys. Loved what I learned today. And really looking forward to next week. Omar, Tommy, thanks again, guys.
See you next week.
Take care, guys.
All right. All right. Take care, guys.